Whitehouse is an aggressive electronic music group that released their first album in the 1980s at around the period of music history where early industrial music acts like Throbbing Gristle and Cabaret Voltaire were starting to reach a wider audience. This was also a few years after the time when electronic music such as Kraftwerk had established the commercial potential of electronic music, as well as around the time when no wave and punk music were established genres with fan bases that would accept esoteric genres of music. Looking back, it's easy to see why Whitehouse attracted a following. What they were playing was the equivalent of what would have happened if you took all of the electronic music at the time and mixed it together to create a strange form of noisy music. I guess kind of like Merzbow. Then, once you add that music to act as bass, a punk rock singer would scream obscene lyrics over the music. Kind of like Suicide, who formed in the early 70s and released their first album in 1977, and where the singer would scream all over the place, like in Frankie Teardropper and Ghost Rider, where he did that weird yelp thing, like, ah! Or whatever. As a result, Whitehouse's music is either incredibly funny or incredibly terrifying depending on who you ask. I personally enjoy Whitehouse primarily for their excellent Birdseed album, which is one of my favorite albums, personally. But I have met people who hate them with a passion. Arguably, the most well-known aspect of Whitehouse is that one of their members is a man named Peter Sotos, who is perhaps more well-known for his writing than his music. Notably, in the 1980s, he published Pure Magazine, which is a magazine dedicated to serial killers. The magazine achieved notoriety for its content. Notably, the second issue featured an image of child pornography as its cover. As Wikipedia notes, a copy of the issue is found in the home of a suspect in a series of child abductions, murders, and grave robbings. I note that says suspect. He might not have actually done any of those things. But if he did, that's pretty messed up. I wonder if the child abductions, the murders, and the grave robbings are connected, because that would make it more messed up. That's my dog. Whitehouse, like most of the underground bands that I happen to research, like Slint and Jesus Lizard, recorded a number of albums with record producer Steve Albini. Hold on. Anyway, Whitehouse, like most of the underground bands I happen to research, messed up. Recorded a number of albums with record producer Steve Albini. If you know me well enough, you'd know that I dislike the way that Steve Albini mixes the records of certain bands. Some of my potentially favorite albums were ruined by Steve's production. Although I really like his production on Slint's Spiderland album. Like, I love the way it sounds. So that's a kind of a notable exception. In Utero was originally recorded and mixed by Steve Albini, but Kurt Cobain allegedly wasn't happy with the mixes, and the album was remixed by Bob Ludwig, using Steve's recordings. The point that I'm trying to make is that in the 90s, Albini's production was highly sought after in the world of underground alternative music, kind of still is today. Bands would either work with him because they wanted his name on the record to boost sales, or because they want more creative control of how their music sounded and were willing to sacrifice. My script here says recording quality, but it's more mixing quality. The actual recording quality, like the mics and stuff used, were actually really good. Today, Whitehouse's music is oddly indicative of certain underground music today. Noise artists creating music using their computers sound remarkably similar to Whitehouse when they add vocals to the music. I actually thought that Broken Sides sounded a lot like Whitehouse when I first heard them. Like, just for the screamed vocals and the way it was mixed, it sounds quite a bit like it. Anyway, I think that this is less of a statement on how far-reaching their actual influence was, because most people haven't heard them, and more of an indication that their attitude predated the dominant attitudes of people making music on computers and posting them online now. Their attitude was shocking for the sake of being shocking, with little artistic depth in their music. The depth of their music is the depth of an overlong YouTube comment posted by a 12-year-old child writing about sex, violence, and other shocking things that she doesn't fully understand in the comments section of a video relating to SpongeBob SquarePants. That's the honest description that I wrote. It was the best thing I could come up with. Like, that 20-minute CD that Kraftwerk put out with, it was basically a 20-minute long song about the Audubon. Yeah, I think I said that wrong. That's why I don't improvise. We're all kind of like that sometimes, right? Like, we talk about sex and violence without fully understanding it. And then there's some guys who do fully understand and have to make it like either meaningful or creepy or something in the content they produce. I think I saw something about Wicked City, maybe an hour or two ago before I recorded this thing, and I was thinking about when I made it, I thought about putting that in the script, and I decided not to. Wicked City, that's pretty messed up. Like, really. I kind of like, don't know why I'm thinking about, Ghost in the Shell right now, but for some reason Wicked City reminds me of Ghost in the Shell, which is one of my favorites. I remember it was playing at, Cineplex. They were doing some kind of retro anime thing. Of course, they played Akira, that's the obvious thing. Anyway, I gotta go get my dog, so thanks for watching this video. Maybe I'll make more, I don't know. Whitehouse is an aggressive electronic music group that released their first album in the 1980s at around the period in music history where early industrial music acts like Throbbing Gristle and Cabaret Voltaire were starting to reach a wider audience. This is also a few years after the time when electronic music acts such as Kraftwerk had established the commercial potential of electronic music, as well as around the time when no wave and punk music were established genres with fan bases that would accept esoteric genres of music.